Welcome to the Myths and Legends channel. Today we'll talk about how angels are perceived in the modern world. Typically, in popular culture, they are depicted as young men or women with pure white wings, a glowing halo, and an aura around their heads. However, this image did not form immediately. Artists of the past rarely portrayed angels in this way, and biblical texts describe a vast diversity of these heavenly beings that often resemble Lovecraftian fantasies. The lack of precise descriptions in ancient sources led to a multitude of interpretations. Over time, images of angels appeared in various forms, from bald, wingless men to androgynous or genderless beings. Some depictions resembled zoomorphic chimeras with 4 heads, legs, or wings, and sometimes even strange constructions like rotating wheels covered in eyes. Every philosopher and theologian offered their own unique understanding of biblical angels, creating ever-new interpretations. In the Bible, angels are described with a great diversity in their appearances, tasks, and missions, with descriptions of these heavenly beings differing significantly between the Old and New Testaments. We decided to gather the most unusual and mysterious images of angels so you can learn more about how these beings might have looked in ancient times. The Old Testament, known as the Tanakh in the Jewish religion, was compiled in ancient Israel and Palestine over several centuries, from the 6th century BC to the 3rd century CE. However, many experts believe that the stories recorded in these sacred texts existed much earlier in oral form. The image of an angel as a heavenly messenger has deep roots going back millennia. Similar beings, in appearance and function, are found in various religions and cultures. They appear in Zoroastrianism, ancient Egyptian beliefs, Judaism, and in the mythologies of other peoples of the world. Archaeological finds, such as altars dedicated to winged guardian angels discovered in ancient Sumer, modern Iraq, confirm the existence of beliefs in such beings as early as around 3000 BCE. The word angel has Greek origins. It comes from the word angelos, which in turn derives from the ancient Hebrew term malach, meaning messenger. These divine messengers are repeatedly mentioned in the Old Testament, where they act as intermediaries between God and humans, delivering important messages or performing special tasks. For example, in one story, the angel of death was responsible for the death of Egyptian firstborns, while another angel single-handedly destroyed a vast Assyrian army, saving the people of Israel. These stories show that angels served not only as benevolent guardians but also as powerful executors of God's will, whose actions could be protective or destructive. Thus, in Judaism and Christianity, angels occupy an important place in cosmology and religious practice, acting as intermediaries between God and humans, with their appearance and functions varying depending on the context and the purpose for which they appear. Most angels lack their own will and act solely according to God's will. However, there is an exception. A third of the angels, who rebelled under the leadership of Samael, were subsequently cast into the abyss and became demons. To avoid frightening humans with their true form, angels often take on a human appearance, but when they appeared in their genuine form, their appearance was so terrifying that people who encountered them often felt fear. This is why angels frequently began their messages with the phrase, "Do not be afraid," aiming to calm the person. The Jewish philosopher and scholar Maimonides, who lived in the 12th century, studied the hierarchy of angels in detail, assessing them by their importance in the heavenly order. In his works, one can find descriptions of various ranks of heavenly beings, including those mentioned in the Bible. One of the most well-known figures is the cherubim, who differ greatly from the stereotypical image of cherubic winged children. In the vision of the prophet Ezekiel, cherubim are described as powerful and fearsome beings. He wrote, "I saw a whirlwind coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing fire and bright light." In this vision, Ezekiel describes an incredible spectacle as a cloud surrounded by bright radiance appeared on the horizon. Within the cloud, amidst the fire, there were 4 beings that resembled humans in form. However, their appearance was truly unusual. Each of these beings had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their legs were straight, but their feet resembled the hooves of bulls, gleaming like polished bronze. Under their wings were human hands, 1 on each side, and the wings of these beings touched each other. Their faces were diverse. All 4 beings had a human face, but on the right side was the face of a lion, on the left the face of a bull, and on the back the face of an eagle. Each of them had 2 wings, one touching the wing of its neighbor, creating a continuous connection between them, while the other 2 wings covered their bodies. These beings could use one pair of wings for flying, and the other pair served as protection, covering their bodies. This description emphasizes the power and majesty of the angels, their heavenly nature, and a terrifying yet divine appearance, difficult to imagine in familiar human terms. The cherubim in biblical descriptions are far from the images familiar to us today. In ancient texts, their bodies, backs, hands, and wings were entirely covered in eyes, creating a frightening and unusual appearance. This image is more reminiscent of the mythical creatures of Mesopotamia, such as the Babylonian Lamassu, a creature with the body of a lion and the wings of an eagle, which was believed to guard sacred places, including palaces, temples, and city walls. In this sense, the Lamassu performed similar functions to the biblical cherubim, who also served as protectors of sacred spaces. Additionally, the cherubim share much in common with the Egyptian Sphinx and the Hittite griffin. Both beings also combined animal traits and served as symbols of strength and protection. Some researchers suggest that the biblical cherubim may have been inspired by these Mesopotamian mythological creatures. In the ancient Near East, cultural exchange was intense, and images of mythical creatures often crossed from one culture to another, adapting and transforming according to local beliefs. The modern image of cherubim as winged children or youths likely emerged under the influence of Greek and Roman gods, such as Cupid. But in ancient times, cherubim were far more complex and fearsome beings, embodying the power and mystery of the heavenly realm. Among all angels, the malachim, or messengers, appear closest to us in appearance, as they often took human form to communicate directly with people and convey God's will. In the Old Testament, angels acted as executors of God's will. For example, the angel of death, who played a key role in the Passover story, or the archangel Michael, defending the heavens, performed their tasks by divine command. In the New Testament, angels more often appeared as messengers, like the archangel Gabriel, who announced to the Virgin Mary her immaculate conception. When people try to envision angels, these named figures often come to mind. Although the malachim messenger angels were depicted as human-like beings, the Bible does not directly mention that they had wings. Interestingly, the earliest known Christian depictions of angels, dating to the mid-3rd century, also did not include wings. It was only by the late 4th century that artists began to depict angels with wings, likely as a way to emphasize their elevated, heavenly nature, even though such attributes were not mentioned in sacred texts. The seraphim, who hold the highest position in the angelic hierarchy, are the closest beings to God in both Jewish and Christian tradition. Their uniqueness and special role are reflected in their significance. They are symbols of purity and holiness, constantly in the direct presence of the Almighty. According to the prophecy of Isaiah, seraphim are the highest angelic beings who surround God's throne and continuously call out, "Holy, holy, holy," proclaiming the approach of the Almighty. The prophet describes them with 6 wings, with 2 they fly, and with the remaining ones they cover their heads and feet, demonstrating humility before divine power. The name of these beings holds deep meaning. The word seraphim comes from the Hebrew seraph, meaning to burn or to blaze, emphasizing their connection to fire and sanctity. If we delve into the etymology, the word seraph is also linked to the concept of a venomous desert serpent. In ancient Egypt, the cobra was called the blazing one, leading some historians to speculate that the images of wings and fire associated with seraphim may have been borrowed from Egyptian culture and its cobra symbolism. Cultural influences of that era, especially in the context of religious concepts, were not uncommon, and many elements could have made their way into biblical texts. Even more mysterious are the thrones, or Ophanim beings that are perhaps some of the most unusual in the Bible. In the vision of the prophet Ezekiel, they appear as wheels fused together and shining with gold. These wheels were covered with countless eyes, symbolizing God's omniscience and eternal presence. The thrones held an important place in the heavenly hierarchy, but their appearance is so unusual that it raises many questions and assumptions about their role and nature in the sacred texts. The wheels Ezekiel described shone like chrysolite, and their complex structure captivated the imagination. They seemed to float in the air, with one wheel embedded within another, allowing them to move in any direction simultaneously. The prophet noted that these wheels were so huge and imposing that their height inspired awe. Their function, according to the description, was to guard God's throne, emphasizing their special role in the heavenly hierarchy. It may seem incredible to imagine such complex and unusual beings. However, some scholars believe that Ezekiel's vision was symbolic, reflecting the mysterious nature of God. In their view, these images were meant to convey the greatness and unfathomable nature of the divine plan, making it more accessible for understanding through metaphors and allegories. The angels of the Old Testament, especially those described by Ezekiel, truly seem extremely unusual. Their strange and terrifying forms reflect not only God's mystical nature but also emphasize the uniqueness of humanity, created in His image and likeness. These angels embodied what transcends human understanding, showing the gap between the earthly and heavenly realms. As Christianity spread around the world, many ancient pagan traditions persisted, transforming and adapting elements of the new religion. For example, in various regions of Europe, people gradually replaced their prayers and offerings to pagan gods of the sky and fertility with invocations to saints or angels, thus continuing their connection to familiar rituals but in a Christian context. The anthropomorphic perception of the divine, characteristic of Hellenistic culture and prevalent in the Roman Empire, had a significant influence on our understanding of many biblical images. The Bible at that time was widely available in Greek and Latin, and Church Slavonic versions were most often translations of these texts. This perception and these translations shaped how we imagine angels today. This brings our fascinating story to an end. If you want to learn more about myths and legends, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell to be the first to see new episodes. Share your thoughts in the comments. We're interested to hear your opinion. See you again on the Myths and Legends channel.